Hello, everyone. Let's talk about student notebooks in Orton Gillingham. So, I want to begin by saying that I don't think this is like the core central thing to Orton Gillingham. You can be a really strong Orton Gillingham teacher and not create student notebooks. Perhaps if you were trained in another training program, the idea of notebooks would be different. You might actually have provided a notebook for you. Like I know in Wilson, that's not Norton Gillingham, but it's structured literacy in Wilson, and in foundations, they have materials that you can buy. But then the only thing about that is it becomes sort of workbook-like. And if we're building our own notebook, we're creating this interactive, authentic record of everything that's been learned. So although it is not central to OG, although you don't have to do a student notebook, for our training program, we're going to ask that you do a student notebook because I want you to feel what it feels like to create this authentic record with your students. It will help you organize yourself as a teacher, but it will really help them feel the organization and the structure that's within the English language. So there's not like one perfect way to do the notebook. Obviously, there are lots of like not so great ways to do it, willy-nilly, without tabs, organization, that would not be helpful. But there are lots of different ways that you might do the notebook, lots of different tabs that are possible. So the idea is we need to think about the English language. Okay, how is it structured? Well, it's structured by its sounds and its syllable types. Okay, so that's what your notebook should represent. Organization related to that. Then we have to think of your child. How old is the student that you're working with, and where on that continuum of the English language are they? If they're a really young student or somebody who's really impaired, working way down at the very, very beginning of level 1, you're going to have a lot more emphasis on vowels versus consonants. If they're a student who is older, or perhaps they're coming in and they just need a quick level 1 cleanup, but then most of the work will be in level 2, then you're probably going to be having heavy emphasis on syllable types and orthography, spelling and vowel teams and are controlled and things like that. You do not have to make too much of the notebook ahead of time. So as you get to know your student, you'll be filling it in together. The part that you do make ahead of time is those little tabs on the sides. I wouldn't stress about what those tabs are because there's only a few options. And I would round up for how much paper you want in between each tab. I wouldn't like really use too much brain time stressing about that because these notebooks are pretty thick and I've never gotten through one with a student. Okay, so I don't think you need to worry about that. Okay, so the way I'm going to organize this presentation is I'm just going to take one student notebook at a time and go through it. And what you're going to see are the various ways that I've done it over the years. So usually the way I start it is, the way I set it up to begin with is based on their age, or like where they are in Orton Gillingham. So I'm going to start just with a first grader. So this is a fall. When I began with this child, it was fall of first grade. So let me share that with you, and we're going to just walk through, and you're going to see how over time we've used the notebook. Okay, so for this particular child, I bought NFL stickers, which are very hard to come by and a little bit pricey, I have to say, but it made all the difference because this was one of his highlights of his lesson, was personalizing and picking an NFL logo. So we got to do that twice during the lesson, the middle and the end, and that was fun. Okay, anyways, so for this child who started with me at the beginning of first grade, we did consonants, vowels, syllables, and spelling. And no, I guess I don't have handwriting in here. Okay. So if I'm going to use one of these composition books, what I use to make my tabs is, this is just a sticky note, as you can see, and I write on the sticky note, and then I just cover it with packing tape, and that'll do it. That keeps it sturdy for years. Okay, so in our consonant section, I like to, this is, in one of my first lessons with kids, we talked about how the consonants are the yellow cards in our deck and how they're closed. or I might have written blocked by our lips, tongue, or teeth. Now, this child didn't really need to do a cleanup with too many consonants, so you can see I don't have like F, fan, G, game, G. I don't have those single consonants. We kind of actually, with this child, we're doing a lot of vowels in the beginning, and then we got into digraphs. Okay, so for digraphs, before the lesson for this child, I would have written the definition in blank. 2 consonants that make 1 sound. So I wrote a very brief definition, and he, after our first digraph lesson, got to fill that in. And then we did see, sock, sh, ship, sh. And then he was feeling so confident because he was doing this in his school that one day he wanted to write them all down. So that's why it switches to his handwriting. Drawing wasn't necessarily something he was pumped about doing. He wasn't really into drawing. So we didn't draw a picture of the keyword, but we anchored them here. We did a BD lesson, and we anchored these here. You can see there's a little star at the top there, so that tells him when he does his B, he goes first the bat, bounce up to the ball. There's a star to show him that he's going to start there. First the drum, then the stick. And so this was a way that he could trace. We drew these, we talked about them, we did this whole anchoring lesson. He could trace them. I could keep this out on the table while he worked. And this reference is here for us. Our lesson on blends, 2 or 3 consonants next to each other, but keep their own sounds. And then when we did our S blends, we did our L blends, and so on. And I think that's all we have for our consonants, because I didn't have to do much consonant cleanup with him. So vowels is a much bigger section for him. So again, early in the very beginning, one of our first 2 lessons, we talked about the difference of vowels and consonants, and we noticed that our vowels are on pink cards and that they are open sounds. I like to put the title short vowels on there, not just vowels. So even though we're going to be in short vowel land for a while, you know, because this is a first grader, I just still like to use that word short vowel, because soon we do get into long vowels and it's nice to be prepared. So we did do, we have A, apple, you can see we did do pictures for the vowels here. Must have been December where we were doing U, Uppa. Okay, our glued sounds. He was in a foundation school, so they really talked to you. His teacher used the word glued sounds, so we did that. No pictures. And then this is a cleanup lesson. As you can see, we've got, this is a cleanup lesson where I had to spend some time on short E versus short I. So what I did for this lesson, because as we moved on with the short vowels, yes, he knew them all. Yes, he could blend his CVC words, but a lot of his errors were lingering around and eh. So I went back and I did a discrimination lesson, and we anchored it in the journal. And then in the follow-up days, we would have referenced these pictures to help us. And we also, I would have made sure his word list and his games had a lot of short E versus short I opportunities, so we could really zoom in and really strengthen that weakness. So this was, I used my lively letters cards this day. So you can see I drew the big E, but then he wanted to do his own, and it's that it's that little like Pac-Man monster E that lively letters has. My goodness, I do not remember what that is. Ed is in bed eating eggs. Oh, okay. I don't even remember where this came from. But this was our sentence. Ed is in bed eating eggs. Okay, then we have here, this is the lively letters picture. It's an I, and we imagined throwing it into the basket. And so the whole crowd is cheering, get it in, in. And so I drew the crowd, he drew the basket. So that was just like this little mnemonic for both of these. It's this little mnemonic about what is happening when we see this symbol, what's the sound that comes out of our mouth. And he needed more than the foundation's keywords. So we did a clarifying lesson, a discrimination lesson, and we anchored it in our notebook. Syllables. Oh, nothing for syllables. So he moved online with me in March, and so we moved to changing the way that we would have done things. So let me go on and show you somebody else. Okay, when this student started with me, he was in 2nd grade as well. So you're gonna, oh yeah, 2nd grade, not 1st grade. So you're gonna see some similarities here. In our digraph section, you can see some similarities to how I set this up. Lens, you see some similarities. He was not as interested in writing in the journal. Another version for how I anchored BD. This is a printable. We put a star sticker where you start, and then he traced with a highlighter. I wrote the little cues. Okay, now he's been with me for a while longer, so this could have been, by the time we got to here, this could have been 2nd or 3rd grade, because again, I didn't do too many consonants with him. So you can see the sounds of the letter C. So I wanted to really make, he did not like drawing pictures, so I wanted to make the images pop out to him more. So I brought a cat sticker and a coin, or one cent with me. So we have those. Same thing for G. This is a game. This is a gem. So I don't typically do this in the journals, but this was a huge, tricky thing for him. So I thought it would be helpful to have something a little bit more memorable. Okay. With this child, we're going to see a lot more work on vowels. So let's go to the vowel section. Okay. This is another way that I wrote my cover page with vowels. Sound made when your mouth is open in some way. Can be long or short. Macron, brev. Short vowels. Long vowels. And so I wrote long vowels, colon, vowel, consonant, E pattern, because we're going to have lots of them. So there we have our options. Oh, and what was I going to say about this? This wouldn't have all been presented on the same day, by the way. And this isn't necessarily chronological. So each section is chronological to the way we taught it, but it's not like I taught that soft C sound. I hope you realize I didn't teach the, the soft C sound before I taught these vowels. It just so happened, this was a very advanced topic I taught, but I just don't have a lot in my consonant section. So in my vowel section, you can see the progression is a lot slower, more thorough, because I did have to iron out the vowels. Consonants weren't the root of his issue. Okay, so we do long vowels, vowel, consonant, E, bossy R, and then I also wrote the other words that teachers call it, are controlled, vowel R. His classroom teacher called it bossy R, so I wanted to use the same terminology since this was so hard for him. I wanted to keep the language the same, but I also said, you know, a lot of people call it R controlled or vowel R because the pattern we see is a vowel than an R. Glued sounds. So we have them here. This is in colored pencil, so it's a little harder to see our pictures. Long vowels, open syllables. And again, this wouldn't all be done on one day. It was like, well, that was all probably done on one day. The E, I, and O. And then those are my pictures. What do you think? Nice, huh? And then these ones would have been done at later lessons. Now we have a whole section called long A vowel teams. Long O vowel teams. Long E vowel teams. And this is great because as you get into the advanced levels, you can go back and add, and then you have all your spelling options. So as he's getting better at doing step 7, the what says part, you know, in the beginning, it might just be 1, and then it might be 2, and then it might be 3. So we're just adding on, and we're helping them organize this all in their brain. Okay, what next for this friend? Okay, 6 syllables. So a syllable is a pattern. Some of my students, the word syllable is just like nonsense to them. They really just can't wrap their head around what that means. So a lot of times I like to call it patterns. We've got 6 patterns for our words. So there we have, I just happen to use his name. Okay, so you can't Can you see here? I think I have it all. Yeah, for this student, I think I pretty much have them all filled in. Okay. But if I didn't, sometimes what I do is I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I actually write the 6 numbers so that you can see how it's, the child can see that there's a finite number. I like to do that. And I like to pull out my foundations poster, you know, that little flipboard, and say, we're going to learn 6 patterns. Today we're on our first one. And then kind of add to it, because I think that helps them not only organize it, but also understand, especially when they're doing the first 1 or 2, like, this is part of a bigger thing here. So I think the most basic way to do it is to do a checklist with what you see, and then the sound is the last note on the checklist, because that's how we would read it. We would see 1 vowel, we would see 1 or more consonants at the end, and then we would know to pronounce the vowel short. So I think when you list them in that order, that might be better at supporting you as you're using this to help the kids identify the pattern. And then I like to do a little marking down below. So I put the consonants in blacks and the vowels in red. Vowel consonant, again, I'm telling him the pattern that we see has a V, C, E pattern. Vowel is long, E is short. Silent. Oh, he wrote shh. So for those last 2, that's what you see. This is what you hear. Again, bossy Irish, just because that's what his teacher used in school. This is what he sees, has a vowel, then an R. Makes a new sound. And that's his last name, so that helps. Open syllable, what do we see? Has 1 vowel. Vowel is at the end of the syllable. Vowel is long. Well, I don't have those ones marked up, but I have my answers ready for him. And then a consonant E syllable has a consonant, then an L, then an E, cannot be on its own, comes at the end of a word. Vowel team syllable has 1 or more letters working together to make the vowel sound. So here's, you can see the start of our long A list, our long O. So I'm doing my best to organize this for the students. This is where life gets really hard. Like, there's a ton of vowel team syllable examples. So for reading, it's fine. We want the kids to at least recognize that they see a vowel team. And kids with dysgraphia, that's an extra hard thing for them. The orthography is really hard for them to like see and appreciate those patterns. And of course, to spell them is tricky. Okay, so we're getting into syllable division here, aka reading big words. So I was trying to like walk him through some steps here. Like, the first thing you might ask yourself as a reader is it a compound word? Like, are there baby words in there? That would be like one of the first things you check for as a reader. Number 2, can I break it apart? Where should I break it apart? And here's the lesson we did with spotting and dotting the vowels. How many consonants in between? So it looks like I didn't actually fill this out, but here he would have written like there's 1 consonant in between those words. So you could make it Robin or Robin, and that would be a lesson on flexing, like, where does that consonant close in the first syllable, or no, does it go with the second syllable and leave it open like we have in Raven? Here we see 2 consonants between the words, so that's easier. You just are going to split right between the 2 consonants, but it's easy for this one, but we have a digraph there and a blend there. And then in that case, it's a consonant LE. And then this one has 3 consonants. So we're looking for those blends, or we're looking for that consonant LE pattern. So that was actually a ton to squish on this page. Those were all multiple lessons right there. Also in my syllable section, I put this in syllables because I didn't have a morphology section, but I could have also done a morphology section, and that would have taken care of this, the word parts. So we did a lesson on some of these. These were, I think, level 1 prefixes. And we didn't even fill that out. Okay, next up in here, I have a spelling tab. This is a level 1 pattern in a 1 syllable word with a 1 short vowel, and the k comes right after the vowel. Use CK. If no, then use K. And then we have our examples. Ignore those Y's. I don't know what that is. This is another level 1 pattern, K or C or K at the beginning of the word. Homophone section. So for spelling choices, long A homophones, they sound the same. They look different and they have different meanings. So we spent a long time working on these. Now, because we had covered these, I felt that I could hold them accountable and quiz them on spelling for these. I can't just randomly quiz students on the correct way to spell male unless I've given them an opportunity to learn the correct ways. So I do lots of memory games where they have to like flip over the 2 kinds of sales and then they have to give me a sentence for each sale, and that helps us to link the meaning with the correct spelling. Once I get some headway with that, then I feel like I can hold them accountable and I can quiz them on them. And we did the same thing for long O. And for long E. Spelling choices, this was a lesson. It was just still dysgraphia, tricky business. So still spelling with vowel teams was just so hard. So even though I did like spent all this time and we've done lots of lessons, I still went back and did a discrimination lesson on like the ones that end with Y or W come at the end, you know, and these guys tend to go in the middle or the beginning. And then this was a quote he had that was like an aha thing that I wanted to record to him because I thought maybe reminding him of his own thinking will help. He wrote, "I picture the word with a fill in the blank. Then I test out my spelling choices." So I was so proud of him for saying that and thinking that himself that I had to just jot it down there as it related to this to remind him that that was a strategy that he uses that works. Our 1-1-1 rule. This has taken literally years. Dysgraphia, when you see a student who makes very little progress in spelling, although they're reading, they're responding to Orton Gillingham for reading, it's usually dysgraphia. So this has taken a lot longer for us to tackle. Okay, we have a handwriting section here. Uppercase letters are in there. Our lowercase letters. We talk about how letters mostly fit in between the 2 lines. Some go up, some go down. Here are all the letters that stay directly between the 2 lines. Here are the ones that go up high, and here are the ones that go down low. And then at one point we're starting to go through the handwriting without tears work, but once I started to get OT in school, I kind of backed off of that. Sometimes with some of my students, I have a general tips and strategies section in the back. If we're doing something with comprehension, I might anchor that in the back just so we have that. We had some writing goals we were working on, kinds of writing. These are just different things over the years that we've worked on. Okay, so this was a student I've worked with for a while, so you can see the growth, you know, starting with short vowels and then going all the way up to some level 2 and level 3 things as well. Okay, keeping it going. Okay, another student here. Sometimes I do this as like a little warm-up thing some days. I'm just going to flip through because this part's all pretty similar. We're looking at her vowels. Just going to pause if I happen to see something different so I can show you like why I might have done it differently. Oh, this is brief because I did all the diagraphs in one lesson. That was just a non-issue for her. So this child was in 2nd grade when I started with her, but does not have dyslexia. More of an ADHD situation. So there are some things that we didn't go through as in depth because she was actually really strong with them. She just needed someone to like slow her down in some regards. Okay, blends look similar. 6-syllable types, I put the heading there. This all looks pretty similar the way I do like the seeing things first and the hearing things next. Oh, here you can see how we haven't finished going through them, but how I've left the blank so that she knows there are 6 patterns. This is a much simpler version than what I had with my other student. Syllable division, very minimal with words here. Compound words. Dividing between two consonants. Dividing after one consonant. So way less visual than that student that I just showed you. And that notebook page didn't really work for him, as you can see. So this was a little bit more effective. Simple. Do we have something in spelling? Oops, I skipped a page. Yep. Something similar there. Oh, the sounds of ED. We talked about this, how even though you might hear t or d, we know that it's a past tense word, so that cues us to write the ED. Another version of how to do the 1-1-1 or doubling rule. 1-1-1 word plus a vowel suffix equals doubling the consonant. And then we have right here. So what is a 1-1-1 word? What is a vowel suffix? And then we have some examples. Oh, and I didn't have a sight word section for her, but we're getting into spelling some sight words now. So we are putting some visuals that go with the words. And we came up with our sentences that go with it. And for this child, she does all of her writing because handwriting isn't that big a deal for her. So she does all of her, sound, her sentences, her step 7, 8, 9, her dictation and all that. I just do it right in the journal. So this works if you're working with someone in person. The thing that's a pain is having to set it up every single time. It works for her because she's whatever. It's usually when she's doing like a sticker break or something that I used to just work right on the page. If you're working online, I don't think it helps to have them number their own paper because if they're sitting at home slaving over the numbers, I think you'll lose momentum. So it's probably more sense for you to just send a printable or direct the parents to help you with that. Okay, this is somebody I started working with in 5th grade and kind of worked with him over the years through the very end of 5th grade. So like now he's in 8th grade, but we don't use this journal too much anymore because now we're doing more schoolwork stuff. This is a cool thing that you can find online. It doesn't totally match everything we do. If you Google Orton Gillingham crab, you'll get this. But because he was an older student, I wanted him to see progress in all the things we had checked off. One of our first times together, I did talk about how these are the 3 kind of like areas of language that I was looking at when I quizzed him: phonology, orthography, morphology. And I was telling him the things that he was good at and the things he needed help with. Morphology he was strong with because he was a really bright kid. His dyslexia, though, meant that he had issues with phonology and orthography. So we set some goals together. Okay, vowels, looking pretty similar. We didn't do pictures for him, but this is what we would have worked on. Consonants. So even though he was an older student, he really had an issue with the b and p sound in spelling, mostly in spelling. So we had to do a clarification lesson on those, and we did a lot of BP exercises in the weeks that followed. Okay, a little bit of digraphs, blends. Sometimes I find these little visuals online that I glue in, but not always. Vowel teams. Okay, where did we leave off here? Okay, 6 syllable types. Pretty similar looking. How to divide long words. Then we moved into pretty quickly because he responded really nicely to intervention. So we moved pretty quickly into doing some upper level stuff. So looking for base, so this is number 2 because it says number 1 is to like spot and dot and decide where to divide. Another way to break up a big word is to look for base words, root words, prefixes, and suffixes. So we were going through common endings for reading and for spelling. And this is the list. Like as we went, we added on to this each time. Spelling rules. Oh, this is so cool. I love these. Okay. So with some of my older students, when we do when we really crank through the long vowels, and I'm really expecting them to be able to spell properly with the long vowel spellings, we do these mnemonics. So Amos was in the lake, so rainy for me the 8th. Oh my goodness, I love doing these. So this is the mnemonic sentence, and it actually is listing not only the spelling options, but the order of frequency. So A open syllable, A consonant E, A I, A Y, E I G H. That's the order. And then actually, if we continue the sentence, it says, so great for his veins. So it has the EA in great and the IE in veins. So I could have lengthened the sentence, but I cut it off because that's as far as we went. Go home on the slow boat, Joe. He needs meat and candy in Cleveland. I feel like this one also has for his niece and monkey. So I'm missing the EI for niece, right? And the EY for monkey. I like to cry and fight for pie. Those are the Long Islands. Okay. So these are really helpful. So when the student is doing step 7, they can say the sentence for themselves, and they can write down all the spelling options for that long vowel. And then even more important, when they go to spell a word for step 8 or just in life, they know what their options are and they know which ones it's likely to be. Okay, we went through the 5 spelling rules. We did not do the floss rule together because he knew that, but I just listed it. 1, 1, 1. So this could also be called the doubling rule. Sometimes I call it that, but not here for whatever reason. The changing rule, change the Y to I. The dropping rule, drop the E. We have tips and strategies. Oh yeah, we do a lot of paragraphs together. So we've got transition words in there. And his work over the years. So this is back 2018. Wow, crazy. You can see, yeah, how for sounds, we're just doing like P and B for a kid like him. He's got paragraphs that go with his work. Yeah, he's circling the syllables that he did. What do we have here? Oh, okay. This is related to our chapter book we're reading, the novel. They also, so a little critique on his writing there. But even still, even when I'm doing upper level stuff, I'm still working on quizzing him with his sounds and his words. I usually take off sentences if I'm doing paragraph writing with a student. We don't need to do sentence dictations. At least I kind of just like use that time for paragraph writing. But you can see how I've got the sounds and look at all the options that he has to remember to write for all of these. And then you can see for his words, we're doing endings. So he's on IV right there. I know this is kind of going off from the regular notebook thing. And then eventually with his sounds, wow, look how many I'm quizzing him on. He's doing a bull, shun, us, yes, shus, and then he's doing his long vowel sounds. Edge, so sometimes he's writing the same spelling, but it's because they have 2 different sounds. Like cottage has the idge, yet massage has aj. So I'm giving him 2 sounds, even though the spelling is going to be the same one. Okay. Yeah. So you don't have to do the workspace for the dictation in your notebook. I only do that if with some of my older students or students who I feel like handwriting and organization isn't as big a deal. Otherwise, I would give them the lined paper. So for the notebook, the most important thing to do with the notebook is to organize it in a way that makes sense for that particular child and do some prep ahead of time, like the tabs. before you see the child for a lesson, you'd want to get that if the page needs to be set up with like a definition or something. If you want to set it up first and leave those blanks, you would want to do that ahead of time. So, but the point of this is for it to be something that the student's engaged in and that you're referencing. So the day that you teach a lesson is the day that you'd probably anchor it when you're doing that introduction or that discovery method, and you've learned it, and then they can anchor it in the notebook. And then going forward in the future days, you have it as a reference to yourself, and it's something that they spent time building with you. So it's more likely that they'll remember it. We'll talk more about student notebooks in class, and of course we need to talk about how to make them digital or how to do them online if that's how you'll be seeing your student.